שופר עכשיו? תקיעת
So
שופר?
you know what? Go ahead. Perfect.
Okay.
Go do the shofar. Perfect.
So you open your hand to the sky and
Okay.
לעצום עיניים, להתרכז.
Thank you, Rivka. Isn't the Jewish woman just amazing? It just like astounds me. Really something so special. Mamish.
Pidyon we have time?
We'll do that after. We're already recording. Okay, so again, I want to say our Hakara Satov, and I want to gush about the Jewish woman, and really humbling. So I want to welcome Heleni Shatenstein. She goes by Eleni, but her Hebrew name is Heleni, and I want to welcome her to this platform. Thank you so much. I know she's come on to daven with us. Eleni converted to Judaism 23 years ago. She is a wife, mother, and teacher of Torah for many years. She is passionate about the subject of Jewish femininity and shalom bayis. She is currently running chaburas on the sefer Ohel Rochel. She is a marriage secrets coach with her own private practice, supporting women to build their home with the tools gleaned from the mesorah of Torah's Imecha. Amazing. She mentors single girls in shidduchim and teaches shalom bayis hashkafa to Kallahs. She currently lives in South Africa and nurtures a dream along with her husband to make their next and final home in Eretz Yisrael, along with all the Jewish people. So I feel very, very privileged, and I can't wait to see her. Eleni, welcome. I'm going off.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me, Naomi?
Oh my gosh, you're gorgeous.
So the truth is, you're welcoming me to a group that I feel incredibly connected to and a part of. For a year now, I've been joining in. I'm a little leaf on my icon, and I'm always doing carpool when you are all waking up in America or making time in Israel. So I'm always on mute, and I'm always have my camera off. But I feel so connected to the sisterhood and so privileged to be introducing myself because I know and love you all already. And I specifically love the Tikkun HaKlali that's very, very close to my heart that we were doing for quite a while, Naomi. Thank you. And so, hi in person. And you should know I feel like your sisters and have been on the journey with you, even though you have no idea. So a little bit about me. I'm trying to find one face. There we go. So I was born as an only child to Greek parents who waited many, many years for a child. And I had basically an ideal life up until a very massive turning point, which I'll take you through. I was brought up with unconditional love from the most incredible, aristocratic, refined people. And I was treated like one of the main important members of the threesome of our family. And I had undivided attention with my parents, and everything was beautiful. And at 15 years old, it all changed. I want to share with you three big events in my life and tie three Torah concepts to those events, because I believe that all of us can track how those Torah concepts are relevant in our lives individually and then nationally. So my father loved fishing, and he went on a fishing trip with friends. And there was an accident, a freak accident, and he drowned. And I remember hearing the scream of my mother, which alerted me to the fact that my life was changed forever. So I was 15 years old at the time, and a few weeks later, my mother's sister took us on a getaway trip, just to try and have some kind of change of scenery and some holding. And on the way back from this weekend away, I watched my uncle driving the car at 140 kilometers an hour, fall asleep at the wheel.
Oh,
I
no.
actually watched him, and I watched the car sort of spin, because when someone's falling asleep at the wheel and their hands are doing this, they counteract the steering wheel. And we tossed across a 3-lane highway. And I wouldn't be alive here today telling the story if there hadn't been a ditch in the middle of the highway, because there was another 3-lane oncoming traffic highway on the other side. And when I woke up again, I woke up to find myself 20 meters outside of the car. And I was sitting upright, and I looked down on my lap, and my mother's face was in my vision, in my line of vision, and she had broken the windscreen with her face. My mother went on to have 300 stitches of plastic surgery to close her face. So a few weeks later, after losing my father, I looked down at my mother's face, and I had a very distinctive thought. I am now an orphan. And in the next moment, I felt my own body, which I had broken vertebra, I had fractured vertebra, I had ripped muscles and tendons in my back. And I felt my back, basically, I collapsed down onto the floor. And I looked up at the sky. It's actually a story in the Gemara about the 2 sages. The one was an orphan, and the other one had his biological father. I won't go into it, but I remember the story in the Gemara references the thought I had. I looked up at the sky. To this day, it's imprinted in all my cells. And I saw this blue sky with these clouds going over, and the thought that was enmeshed in my cells was, I'm an orphan and I will never walk again. I felt absolutely paralyzed. And in that moment, this idyllic childhood came crashing down. Didn't end there, because when we came out of hospital, I remember my mother walking in a massive body brace. We had done a lot of damage to our bodies. It was a miracle that we survived. And we had lost our home. My home was under negotiation to be bought by a big company. We lived in a small flat. And at the time that my mother had not only lost her husband without a will, and we'd lost consciousness for so many weeks, we weren't in the world necessarily, we then had lost our home. So I want to introduce the first Torah concept, that we know the universe really, it sits, this concept, in the foundation of the creation of the world, and that is Shviras HaKelim. We understand, and this isn't the forum to discuss these deep Kabbalistic concepts about the shattering of the vessels, but effectively in my personal life, there was a massive shattering of every vessel that was known to me, my body, my home, and my family. And at a very young age, I had to ask some very existential questions. And I asked questions like, what is it all about? Is it all random? Can any minute some force turn the corner in the universe? This is how I used to speak, and just pull the rug from underneath me. Like, I was very afraid, because I had no idea of how things progress. Is there purpose? Is there a loving force? Is there a wicked force running the universe? There were some very big questions that I was asking. Is there God behind these events? Is it fate? Is it my destiny? And what is it all about? And I really spent the next 10 years asking and searching. I was exceptionally insistent on getting answers to these questions, because it was the very foundation of which I could live by. And it was an interesting search. It was 10 years of looking in my birth religion, Greek Orthodoxy. I looked into New Age spiritualities, and you often hear these stories when converts recount their story, how they are mavakesh, they are seeking, they are searching. And I went in all different directions and all places. I landed up in Buddhist retreats. I was traveling. I took the money of my work and I went to Greece, knowing very well that I had to just look for something there because my ancestry are from that place. And at the time I was 10 years on, I was already in my post-university, and I was starting to make friends with a lot of Jewish men and women, young girls and young boys, feeling very at home with my Jewish friends. And I went with one of them actually to Israel, and I found myself in Jerusalem. He went to the Kotel. It was Leil Shabbos, and I had no idea what happened to me, but I heard a group of Beis Yaakov girls singing Lecha Dodi. It's still happening 23 years later, these beautiful, innocent groups. And I sat on the floor in the Kotel Plaza, hysterical, crying my heart out, convulsing, hysterical. My friend came up to me with his sister, what's going on? And I couldn't explain it. I had absolutely no understanding of what was happening to me. I was just crying and sobbing until they managed to pick me up off the floor and take me for supper. So that was just an interesting moment in the journey. But it wasn't until I did a very interesting process that I would say that my conscious journey into Judaism began. And that was, I found out about two women who facilitated a personal transformation process called a vision quest. I don't know if any of you know about that. It's very popular in California, but really it is based on the practice that the shamanic people, the people in the Native Indian American tribes do. They move themselves away from their tribe when they feel a calling to become this spiritual leader, this shaman in the tribe. They leave the community that they live in and they go into the wilderness. And this should already be familiar to us in our mesorah. We have many greats who spend much time in Dvekus, in Hisbodedus, in the wilderness with Hashem, in our own mesorah. But this is a practice that this particular modern version drew from the native Indians. I'm sure they dabble in a lot of psychedelic drugs because the point is to alter your state of consciousness so that you're tapping into another realm, a realm that's not necessarily visible. And so I decided, well, I've done everything else that I can. I might as well go spend 4 days in the wilderness on my own. So at a young age, in my 20s, I joined a group. I went with these facilitators. And the night before I left, it's usually held in Cape Town, which is in my country and south of where I live, in these beautiful mountain ranges. And what the process is, for 5 days, you live in-house with a group of people and you prepare. And what are you preparing for? You're preparing to go live on your own in the wilderness for 4 days, 3 nights and 4 days. We don't dabble in any altering plants or medicines or things like that, but we do fast. So you take 20 liters of water and a sleeping bag, and you walk into the wilderness and you go and live there on your own for 4 days. So you got to prepare to do that. And I did that in the group. But just before I left, the night before I left, it happened to be lots of mikra in my story, right? That my mother had told me that my father grew up in Zimbabwe. My father was actually born in Egypt within a Greek community. And when Nasser came into power, they fled and they landed up in Zimbabwe alongside a Jewish community. There was a Jewish and a Greek community living close by together. And he grew up in Zimbabwe. And there is a magnificent, magnificent part of the world there that is untouched. And the African people actually give it an African name, which if you translate that name, it's called the holes in which the ancestors dwell. It's this, you could actually Google it. The place is called the Matopos. And it's these big, beautiful mountains, these whaleback mountains, and all of these natural stone constructions of a stone and a big rock, and then another rock on top and another rock on top. And they've got these caves and lots of wild animals there. And it turned out that every year these facilitators were running the process in Cape Town. But this year they happened to have a man on the group who was from this area, and he had donated his plot of land to our group. And my mother said to me, oh, you know what? Your father always told me when we were dating that when he died, he wanted to be buried in the Matopos. My mother was a very poshut woman, very simple, very emistic, full of emunah, and nothing was dramatic for her. And she just told me very nonchalantly. And then I knew. I knew that for 10 years I'd lived with this pit in my stomach. I actually didn't share what happened to me the night before my father drowned. I was sitting on the bed talking to my mother and a friend who my father went fishing with, his wife, and I just fell off the bed the night before as if someone had stuck an iron rod into my stomach. I couldn't breathe. I was screaming in pain. It was just out of the blue. It was the most bizarre thing. And a few minutes later, it was over. And I always felt like something had been ripped out of me before my father died. And I'd lived for 10 years with this hole in the pit of my stomach. And that night that my mother told me I was going to go and spend 4 days on my own in the place that my father had wanted to be buried, it all just came to full circle for me. So I went with a very strong mission, and that was to hopefully find some answer to what it means to live in this world and answer those questions I was asking all those years, and finally lay this sense of loss to rest. And the most incredible thing happened to me. So you can imagine, if you don't eat for 4 days, what happens to you? And if you don't speak to anybody else, what starts to happen? There's a definite shift in consciousness. Obviously, I slowed down enormously, and I slowed down into a real communion with the natural cycles around me. You wake up with the sun, you go to sleep with the sunset. You notice everything. I was in wilderness where there were snakes and scorpions. I saw many of them, many antelope, lots of baboon troops, eagles flying above my head. This is untouched nature, raw nature. Probably lots of cats. They're not maybe the big five, but definitely droppings of animals that were not just antelope. Very rich, fertile African wilderness. And so I slowed down a lot. And of course, I was in a tainus dibur. There's only so much you can talk to yourself. And I started to come into real contact with Hashem. It's the bottom line, with the creator behind all of this nature. And I really feel a connection to being a Bas Avraham, because I know that is the journey that Avraham found Hashem just by observing the world that he lived in. And so by the last night, I was in full communion, if you wish, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, talking to Hashem as if we were best friends. We were, I suddenly sort of got a download of so many answers to what I was looking for. It wasn't a intellectual search. It was a very experiential, tangible connection to the creator of the world. And one of the practices for your last night is you sit on a mountaintop and you call for your vision, which is what obviously the shamans would do. And I looked up at this magnificent, mind-blowing sky, literally no light pollution, no pollution. I cannot describe what the skies looked like, just more stars than black. And I actually asked 3 questions. I was now very clear that I was talking to the creator of the world. It wasn't an idea. And I said the following. I said, Hashem, I am going to come down from this mountaintop. I didn't call Hashem Hashem. I didn't know much about Jews, and I certainly didn't know the term Hashem, but I said to God, the creator of all of this, I'm going to have to come down from this mountaintop, and I'm going to have to go back into my relationships and the world of work. And I don't want to lose this feeling, and I don't want to lose this connection. So show me how. And I started to say, help me to keep this connection and this wakefulness and this ability to be in touch with you when I eat and when I sleep and when I wake up. And I kid you not, I said, when I tie my shoes. I don't know where that came from, but I literally was asking for Judaism, and I had no idea that that's what I was asking for. I said, I want to connect with you before I put something in my mouth and after I've ingested it. And in all the mundane details of life, I was saying, I want to stay this awake. I want to stay this connected. And the 3 questions that I stayed up all night asking was, who do I serve? Where do I serve? And how do I serve? So the second Torah concept that I'd like to bring from this part of my life, from this part of the story, is that the foundation of being a Yid is having a tangible, personal, and intimate relationship with Hashem. I believe that all of our service and all the details and all the nuances of our Yiddishkeit really plays off and is built on that foundation. And without it, we're just so much less built to be who we need to be in the world. So I really was asking to maintain this personal connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I entered society again. And as things would be, it's one thing to ask Hashem for something, but it's a very different thing when he answers you. Because I happen to have quite a few Jewish friends already from my postgraduate university enrollment, and I started to read their libraries. And I got my hands very quickly onto books like Derech Hashem and Mesilas Yesharim, and some very heavy duty in a space, some very heavy duty Torah hashkafa. And it was very frightening to me because suddenly I was reading things that I had asked for, or almost they weren't simple answers about what I'd asked. They were almost descriptions of reality that I was recognizing as I read these books. There was a feeling of, oh, I know this. I resonate with this. I've been searching for this for so many years. And I came off that mountain and out of that experience in 1999. And by 2001, I had converted. So it was an interesting journey. It wasn't simple. The Beth Din definitely succeeded in trying to push me away. They used the fact that I was an only child to a widow against me. They said things like, you will not go into your mother's funeral in a church. They definitely tried to challenge my commitment. And even in the times when I would throw the Hebrew books away and close all the books and say, I can't do this to my mother, I can't do this. 3 weeks later, all the books would be open again. There was such a sense of being mevakesh, such a sense of yearning, that it's something inside of me that drove me to keep going. Until eventually I felt like it's not even my choice to go to this final mikvah to convert. It's like Hashem's chosen for me. That's how it felt. And you've had the speaker on this Nishma circle before. Her name's Nicole Landau. She's spoken once or twice. She was a very good friend of mine, which when I went to the Av Beis Din, they put me in a class to learn my conversion material. And I went to the Av Beis Din very soon and I said, I need more. I need way more than a once a week class. And the Av Beis Din at the time, most wonderful man, he said, Halavai, we should have Jews coming and begging, to ask to learn more. But here, I'll put you in touch with a brilliant teacher. And of course, Nikki and I met. I'll never forget, she taught me the concept of psik ratio. We did 1 or 2 Rashis in Chumash, and then we spent the rest of the time talking, and we never looked back. I call Nicole my spiritual midwife. And she came with me to the final mikvah, to the Beth Din interview, and then to the final mikvah. And we're still very, very close. I told her I'm speaking today. I don't think she's on, but I wanted to give her credit and gratitude for being such a part of my journey. And I said to her, like, Nikki, I don't even feel like it's my choice. I feel like I have to do this. I've gotten in so far. And so the third idea that I'd like to share with you, which is really the title of my talk that I gave Naomi, is what happened to me when I came out of the mikveh. So I'm going to describe it to you with words, but you have to understand that the words are going to rob it from the essence, because it was an experience of das. And when you're trying to put that into words, you ruin it. But I can't give it over to you in any other way. For me now, it's a memory, and it's something I reference all the time, and it's an experience that colors the way that I live my life Jewishly. When I came out of that mikveh, besides feeling a profound sense of homecoming, like this searching soul that had been driving me from one experience to the next tirelessly, was suddenly home, was the most overwhelming sense of I'm home, like an ancient feeling of arriving home, like an ancient longing, an aching longing had finally come to rest in her home. And then I started to get throughout the day these waves of downloading into my consciousness what I was entering into. I kept saying to Nicole, I was crying, I was sobbing, and I kept saying, like almost trying to catch my breath. No, you don't understand. We won. We won. And every time I would say that, I would get another download of plugging into a unified force of my home, this unified soul called Am Yisrael. As an adult, I had the privilege of consciously entering into it over and over again with increasing exponential waves of consciousness that, oh my gosh, I'm entering something so much bigger than me. And this is the final and third point I want to bring out, is that when we say we're one, you know, the Baal HaTanya teaches, Knesset Israel and the Shekhinah, it's the same thing. For Hashem to reveal himself, he needs to come to a unified body called Knesset Israel. This is his zivug, right? This is the Kali, the Merkava for Hashem in the world, is the unified entity of Jewish souls. So I had the privilege of actually experiencing that as I came into connection with my Jewish soul, is that it's not an isolated, independent experience. I came home to the unified soul called Am Yisrael. And so just to end, I was thinking about these three Torah concepts, this shattering of vessels. I believe when Hashem wants to give us greater light, sometimes we all have this concept of Shveras HaKelim feature in our lives. Things break, relationships break, our dreams break. And in a way, we need to look at those experiences and say, as painful as this is, Hashem's remolding a vessel for me. He's breaking the old vessel because it's too small, because it's too thin. And he wants me to build a bigger vessel because he wants to give me more light. He wants to give me the opportunity to carry more light. And then moving into the second concept, that means that if he's inviting me to be a bigger vessel because he wants me to carry more light, there's more personal relationship for me to plumb, for me to develop. And then when there's more personal relationship for me to develop with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's more of Am Yisrael that I can plug into. There's more contribution I can make. There's more role playing that I can play for the Kallahs. So they're not really separate entities in a way. I see them as processes that I think all of our lives can visit over and over again, these three stages. But also I feel what we're going through collectively as Am Yisrael. What happened on the 7th of October was, again, another Shveras HaKelim for us. And every individual has been invited to come into deeper personal relationship with Hashem. And then what does that mean? It means we're coming into and we're seeing it all over. Deeper personal relationship, one to the other, because we're one. Because when we discover more of who we are, we discover more of who we belong to. We belong to each other. We belong to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I was thinking just to pick out, I have many, many crazy stories to share, but I really wanted to focus on those three events in my life. Really, I'm ending off at 2001 when I converted. There's another 23 years on top of the story. But I feel like I wanted to pull something out also as a limud, where we can see where our vessels break, where we are being invited into deeper personal relationship, and where we can reveal more of the reality that we really are one.
Eleni, first of all, I wanted to say something. You know, your story is not just like a story of makes you so miragesh, so emotionally, it really brings up so much emotion on an individual, personal level. But it's such a story of hope. It's such a story of, there's so much chizuk in it. But I have to tell you a very, very interesting thing. You know, as you were speaking, I was thinking to myself, I'm so jealous that you had the ability to choose. Because, you know, we just came through the book of the Megillus root.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I was just having this discussion with somebody else on Friday, Erev Shabbos. And I was saying that we came from a convert, right? David Melech, meaning like our Geula, our Mashiach, comes from the essence of choosing, not from the essence that it was given to us, right? Yeah. But Geula, there's such depth and if you really think about it in the deepest way, right? Hashem is telling us such deep things. Like we look at the story and we go, wow, Ruth was unbelievable. But there's so many secrets in the understanding that Ruth chose to be connected to Hashem. She chose to give up what she came from, and she chose the deepest, most profound depth of Lech Lecha, right? She gave it all up, right? Mm-hmm. And she said, here I am. And when I was listening to your story, I was thinking to myself, the amount of awe that we need to have, because you didn't have a Naomi, right? You didn't have a Naomi. You had a Shviras Kalim. You had something that happened to you that nobody in this world should ever experience, right? You were given this world, this life, and this whole life came crashing down. And in your choosing, you could have chosen to really fall apart. I'm sure there was parts of you that did, right? But you could have really continued on that path, because suffering and all these different things are a very, very difficult thing to really deal with. We're human beings, right? But you went on this path of searching, who am I? What is life? What does it all mean? And then you went on to find God in a very, very deep way, right? And it's so interesting because my husband and I, a few months ago, were at this couple's house, very, very holy people. He was telling us, the tzaddik said to him that whoever really wants to find God in the deepest way can find God. It doesn't matter from where, right? This really big tzaddik told him that the whole essence is really to find God. And it doesn't matter where that comes from. If somebody is searching for God, God is going to get close, is going to bring that person close. So I have to tell you, like, there's so many lessons.
We know from the Torah, you led in accordance with your Ratzon, with where you want to be, where you want to go.
But your whole story is really, it's really unbelievable. And it's such a lesson, just like Ruth was such a lesson for us. That sometimes we don't really chap the lessons. We don't chap the lessons, and we don't really understand them. But there's such deep, deep, deep lessons in the story, and what is going to come, how Geula and Mashiach is going to come, and the concept of really searching. That's what you did. And I have such like unbelievable awe in your story, and the fact that you want to share it, the fact of what you've taken in your life. It's just unbelievable,
Baruch Hashem. I mean, I did daven that it should be lechvoid Shemaim, because at the end of the day, it's what you said. It's what you said. We had to reveal that. And
but you did it. And
well,
even
I
though
felt very helped along the way, I must say. At some
yes,
point there was
still,
a lot of
right. But through the darkness, you found something, and you did something that was so unbelievable, right? And it's really a lesson for all of us, for all of Am Yisrael, and exactly what you said, the unity that we're one, one with each other and one with Hashem, and it's just unbelievable. I can't tell you how. I don't know, such a chizuk story. It's really unbelievable. So I'm going to open it up to 2 questions.
Sure. Pleasure. There's lots more to say, but pleasure. Whatever you want to ask me, I'm happy to share.
So I'm going to open it up just to 2 questions. If anybody would like to ask Eleni a question before we get off. It's just really unbelievable. Really something. Lee, I wanted to ask you, how is whatever happened with your mother?
Okay, so my mother, because she loved me so much, as difficult as it was, she never left me. She stayed very close. She landed up building a cottage on my property as I was having baby number 1, and then number 2, and then number 3. My mother died 5 years ago from a horrendous cancer, and we basically nursed her and lived with her for the 6 years from her diagnosis until she died. My children lost a second mother, and I actually thought, I've done this grief thing before, it's fine. But it wasn't so fine. It was a real year of another stress, Kaylee. And now we just live in her legacy of unconditional love and acceptance and tolerance. And please God, we have generated many sosim for her. My children have done siyums in her name, and we just live with a great sense of gratitude to how she stayed so loyal to me and to my family and connected herself to us.
Did you ever look back to see if there was any Jewish ancestry in your family?
Yeah, there must be. My grandmother, actually, in Zimbabwe, who was born in Egypt, she was born in Cairo. I'm named after her, Eleni, and she was like such a Jewish mama. I never knew that in her self there was no Jewish lineage, but she was friends with all the Jews in Zimbabwe. She was a seamstress, and she would make all of the Kallahs wedding dresses. In fact, she handed me a bag of Swarovski crystals and pearls for my wedding dress. And at her funeral, Naomi, there were many Jewish old ladies there mourning my mother, but I was the only kosher Jew there in the old age home. And her Jewish best friend got up and said, the only way I can describe Eleni, my grandmother, is, and she quoted Eishes Chayil. I thought, isn't this funny, But my uncle did a DNA test, and he found like 34% Ashkenazi and 28% Sephardi, but nothing that we can tangibly find in terms of tracing back people who were Jewish. And my mother's side of her family came from Imecha, which is an island just under Italy, northwest Italy. But she was also born in South Africa. And my aunt is a very devout Greek Orthodox Christian woman, and she's quite proud I'm Jewish, because she said, it's the same thing. We're a Judeo-Christian faith. It's Orthodox is Orthodox. So it's interesting, like nothing I've found, but there's a deep resonance. My father had a deep flirtation with Jews, even in Zimbabwe. So nothing I can say I found out for sure, but there's hints. What can I say?
Because a tzaddik once explained to me that he told me that when people leave Yiddishkeit, like in a family, the Zohar, I think, shows that every third generation, somebody returns. There's somebody that returns. This, through sparks. So that would be, but wow. Wow,
my rabbi actually joked with me. He said to me, Eleni, maybe you were a Hellenist.
Wow,
maybe you had to come, we just had a fun joke, but we none of us are new souls, so who knows what the journey is.
Right.
Yeah.
We're actually today, because we've had so many Gilgulim, so many reincarnations, most people are made up of many sparks, of many souls.
Yes.
Because every day that you rectify your day, that part of the sparks of your neshama go up to Shamayim. So because we've been around so many times, so many of those sparks have gone up, that a Rav once told me that when we come down now, we're comprised of many different sparks from many different neshamas. And I wonder sometimes, is that why some people feel so connected to each other? Because we are maybe mu'rav, we are mixed up with so many different neshamas together today.
Yeah, we have no idea how connected we are. I kept saying that to Nikki. I said, no, you have no idea. No, you have no idea. It was just like overwhelming the whole day. I was like, no, you think we connected. You think we weren't. No, you have no idea. Like, that's how it was for me. It was a crazy experience.
Right. I know. Anyways, Eleni, it
Thank
was
you.
really, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. This
Thank
was
you for
so
trusting me,
special.
Naomi.
No, it was so special and so beautiful. And Hashem should just continue giving you strength through this beautiful
Amen.
journey you're on, and teaching and giving to others and loving, and it should just, your whole family should just be, it should be full of blessing and no more tsar. Your family should only
Amen.
have the most beautiful blessings and light, and you should feel always Hashem's embrace around you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you
to
so
you
much.
too. And I look forward to
Thank you, Amen.
continuing davening and being together with you, special
And we're going to,
woman.
you know what,
Well,
Eleni, I was going to say to the group on Wednesday, if we can, you know, I really believe that the Tikkun HaKlali, like the amount of books that we're saying, I don't think people understand the strength that is causing in the world to do that. And every time I tell a Haredi person that we've done this as a group, they're like, whoa, I don't think you understand what you're doing. So I was hoping maybe Wednesday, if everybody would bring in some people and we can just say hundreds and hundreds of books. It takes us literally 10 minutes. And if we can do that, it would be, I don't know, so amazing. Can't hear you. No, can't hear you. No, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I said,
There you go.
absolutely. I love it. It's very special. I do it. I do it in Elul every day. I do it many times in the month. So I would love to continue to join you. Yashar koach.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Eleni.
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a
This was so
wonderful week. Be
gorgeous.
well.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you.
Bye. Cheers.
Okay, everyone. We'll see each other. Bezrat Hashem. I'm just going to take us off live stream.